Alright, in this presentation I will give you some information about the definition of role models and also the significance of setting role models in our lives. Who is a role model? When you consciously or unconsciously try to emulate the behavior and this, let's say, success or some lifestyle, let's say aspects of lifestyle of a person, as I said, consciously or unconsciously, you are following that person and you have selected that person as your role model. And generally this is more intense among the young, because the young are more ambitious and emotional, and sometimes they get carried away in the case of celebrity role models that I will explain more. The term role model was first coined by the sociologist Robert K. Menton, who hypothesized that individuals compare themselves with reference groups of people who occupy the social role to which the individual aspires. Dr. Menton also recommended that if you want to adopt or set some role models in your life, there are some criteria to take into account. One of them is that you should not just randomly select role models, and there must be some commonalities between you and your adopted role models, and also the gap should not be too widening, because if it is so big, I mean the gap, that role models actually demotivates you instead of just stimulating you, or the outcome is more frustrating rather than motivating. Okay, now I try to focus on some important categories or classifications of role models. In the first place, celebrity role models that are so, let's say, popular these days because of the state-of-the-art technology, and particularly the young try to emulate celebrity role models. I mean, sports stars, pop stars, and so on and so forth. And that is somehow, on many occasions, this emulation is immoral and causes some moral issues. Another category of role models is community role models, and community role models unfortunately receive inadequate attention these days, and teachers and parents just try to fill this gap and are considered the central influence to a child's upbringing and future success. Basically, because of the fact that they spend so much time with children from early stages of life, at home and at school, so they are really influential. For example, research has shown that the role models as teachers and doctors encourage people's support for tobacco ban more effectively and directly than policy promotion. And also some community role models, like the ones in Western communities, are usually experts in a certain field. It means that, for example, if you are a university student and your specialty is physics, you try to regard your university professor, full professor, as your role model, and then, for example, you see that gap between you and your professor and you try to bridge the gap. So it's not that unimaginable. And another category of role model is athlete role models, or sports stars, as I explained, but to be more specific here, just focusing on sport ability. And there are some controversies on whether they could be categorized according to role models, because actually they don't have any specific moral standpoint, and they just have some perseverance and discipline to be able to compete in sport events. And sometimes psychologists and sociologists believe that they should not be categorized according to role models. And the other point is that as it is noticeable personality trait of mine, I try to add something else to just simply copying and pasting some information, which is necessary, by the way. To be honest, the reason for which I selected this topic as the topic of my lecture is because of the fact that some time ago, 2 or 3 months ago, I conducted an experiment, a personal experiment, and I just divided a period of time, around half of a month, into 2 halves. So in the very first week, I decided to just lead a normal life. I just focused on leading a normal life without getting inspired. From Saturday to next Saturday. And in the next week, the second week, I decided to just focus on inspirational, let's say, material. Early in the morning at 5 o'clock a.m., I used to just refer to some inspirational channels, and hopefully there are so many. Let me drink some water. For example, I used to select some specific role models that I wanted to get inspired by, and early in the morning, that is a very propitious moment, and I noticed that just by exposing myself to those inspirational materials and people, focusing on the lifestyles and biographies and autobiographies of highly successful people, I had a marvelously different week. The second week was really a horse of a different color, completely different, a completely different issue. And by I cannot say that I emulated them, because I don't want to copy other people blindly. I just got inspired, and that is the difference that should be taken into account. When you set or choose some role models, it doesn't necessarily mean that actually you should copy them completely and blindly. Sometimes I have some role models, and on many occasions or from many aspects I do not agree with them, but I try to get inspired, because I believe that we are lazy, and everybody. Laziness is a part of human nature, and we sometimes try to stick to our comfort zone and safety zone. But when we open our minds and eyes and notice that, there are some other people who had the same conditions, but who could just do something and change their let's say surroundings and atmosphere and conditions, I think this is a good lesson to consider. Okay, thank you very much for listening.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. So if you have
Perfect.
any, thank you very much. So if you have any question, anything, any mispronunciation,
I would appreciate if you could explain more about community role model that you mentioned. Actually, there is lack of attention to this. Yeah.
Okay, in comparison to celebrity and athlete role models that are usually followed by the young, because the young are really emotional, they get carried away, and emotionally, not logically sometimes. Community role models, unfortunately, as I said, have received inadequate attention, because this is ubiquitous among uh, well-educated students and highly educated students.
Mm-hmm.
For example, as I said, the university student tries to emulate their professor. So this is
Right.
not that common in comparison. Singer Taylor Swift, you know, everybody is following her, or Taylor Swift is a model, a role model to millions, billions of people. You see, but
Mm-hmm.
for example, who knows Professor Chomsky? Just some few people, in comparison to Taylor Swift. Yeah. So that's why community role models actually are not as famous and popular as celebrity role models.
Right. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
No, I think
Yeah.
artists and
Mm.
filmmakers are more influential in comparison to singers.
Mm-hmm. Well, this is rather personal. I don't call these people role models. I call a person role model who can inspire me to do something worthwhile, not just, for example, dancing. It's not that. It's personal issue. You might
But
even
talking about
actually challenge me.
filmmakers,
Yeah,
filmmakers, I think they can,
yeah.
let's say, inspire you
Filmmakers,
to
yeah.
do something. Yeah, you can
Filmmakers, yeah,
learn something.
yeah.
Honestly, frankly, watching Woody Allen's movies are really enjoyable for me, and sometimes I try to learn something by watching his movies.
Woody Allen.
Yeah,
Not yeah. It's in English we have this saying that reads different strokes for different folks. So
yeah,
everybody has got his or her own specific taste, and we should
yeah,
not just criticize others for let's say a difference of opinion. Yeah, Woody
yeah,
Allen is not that. For example, I like Stanley Kubrick. I'm crazy about him and his products. And Kevin Spacey, I like him very much. Woody Allen, I just found Take the Money and Run Away. Actually, I liked that movie very much. This is the title of a movie. Have you seen that?
take the money and go away. Yeah,
Run
something.
Away, but I like that very much. Yeah, Woody Allen.
Right. Can I ask a question?
Sure.
Is it necessary to set a living role model for ourselves?
Mm-hmm. Depending on your situation, your conditions, and your atmosphere, environment, I think it is not bad. You could test it. The same thing that I did. Just
Right.
experience 1 week without any role model, and experience the week immediately after that, and you start your day with watching some inspirational, for example, autobiographies of highly successful people, and even reading some biographies of people. There are billions of materials online, and they are really of good quality, and you could
Right.
see the difference. You could see the difference. It was really good for me. The results were outstanding.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Right. As a matter of fact, some days ago, I was listening to Tim Cook's lecture, the CEO
Yeah.
of
Yes.
Apple. Actually, as a matter of fact, he believes that it's better to set, let's say, a dead role model for yourself, because if you set a living role model, for example, let's say it is possible that after some period, for example, you follow him or her for 30 years, and after that period, he or she will do something that disappoints you. Okay? But if you set, let's say, a dead role model for yourself, he or she never can disappoint you. And I agree with him.
Yeah, that's good point.
Yeah.
That's a really good point. It depends on another point, that I never ever try to just choose one single role model.
Mhm.
you know, because if you just focus and choose one single role model for yourself, uh, I think it causes some ignorance and prejudice. You know, you
Right.
become bigoted, and
Mhm.
you need to. In my idea, you know, I don't want to impose my ideas upon you, but I have selected around 10 role models, and I just copy, or I mean consciously copy, not blindly copy, different perspectives and angles of their lives, and personalize them to my life, you know. And
Right.
for example, I take something from Louis Hay, and I take something else from, for example, Henry Ford. I take something from I don't care about the other, let's say, points of Henry Ford's life, and I take
Mhm.
something from, for example, Thomas Edison, and I take something else from Arnold Schwarzenegger. Yeah.
Right.
So in so doing, I think you will be open-minded, and you don't need to just, for example, and I don't care, you know.
Thank
And I
you.
do believe that I do believe that sometimes you could be the role model of others if you are
Mhm.
really serious, if you have initiative, creativity, if you believe in yourself, and just and I really hate the idea of copying, as I said during my in my presentation. Just blind copying is taboo in my dictionary.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
Right.
Uh, So, and I think if you have time, of course you have time, just spending a couple of minutes per day, uh, just go through that experience to see, to have better insights into the concept of role models. You know,
Mhm. Right.
studying, reading something is different from implementing it. You see?
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I see.
So, have any question, anything, any point?
Well, thank you so much.
Yeah.
You're welcome.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.